Hello everyone, this is September 14, 2025. I wanted to start today's star stream illumination with a reflection on the intense solar lunar eclipses that we've been experiencing. We're going to continue experiencing through September 2025 and read through some of the comments we got into last week with the last Star Drops upload on starfires.com. We are in a Pisces Virgos theme for the next month. It is a yellow ray axis. In other words, even though Virgo is earthy, Pisces is water, they are signs which form the yellow cross of wisdom. Gemini, Sagittarius, Pisces, Virgo. This means the month of September will have a mental theme for science, high idealism, speculations, intuition, combined with technical analyses and other intellectually refined activities. It draws on issues such as pain, suffering, illnesses, weaknesses, /surrender, spirituality, submission to a higher presence. It has to do with recommitting to a study of some highly meaningful work for ourselves. So it's going into things such as suffering, sacrifice, surrender, and so on and so forth because of the Pisces lunar eclipse theme. Its mission is oriented with a mind engaged to help self or others. This cycle will be about self-observation and humility. It's about getting right with one's higher self and divine source in some ways. Yes, a realignment of what one knows to be or should be a priority. Because the planet Uranus is in a hard angle to these Virgo Pisces signs, that creates an extremely volatile situation. It's been in square to Mercury in Virgo, full moon and lunar eclipse, sun and moon in Pisces. The sun in Virgo, the moon in Pisces. This understanding of the Uranus square, I'm just paraphrasing here, always creates sudden, unexpected incidences. Okay, back to the post. The inner self understands, this is worldwide, globally, okay? This was like September 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the lunar eclipse was on the 7th. I always warn people 3-4 days before, 3-4 days after a lunar eclipse, be careful because bizarre, negative things can occur if we're not watching everything more astutely, more hyper-focused during that period, and it's definitely not a time when we want to take risks. And then you add to it, the planet Uranus was in a very hard angle lined up with this lunar eclipse, and that magnifies it tenfold. So back to the article. The inner self understands something is about to happen on the planet which disrupts the stabilization of humanity. An earthquake is about to shake up society. So one is arranging all their priorities and getting their ducks in a row during this time. I would count on Uranus's movement into Gemini, the sign of information and data, to trigger exposure of certain event surfacing, all coming out into the open. When would we be expecting these things? Now through September 21 and thereafter. For some, the despair of the soul's neglect of her pursuit for the light and wholeness and committing herself to that pursuit is the underlying theme. Then all limitations, karmic conditions, desire for repair, and attentiveness to the right course of action for self-perfection or others in your life too, is September. Let's keep going. And then it continues with affirmations and it goes on to the rest of the article. So let's pick up where we left off. I just wanted to recap that and then go into the most recent star drops that's being released today. So let's go into the lunar eclipse on the 1776 chart, and what we find is the moon in Pisces that day is activating the third house of the media. The ninth house has the sun opposing it, which has to do with broadcasting, publishing, and bringing one's opinions out into the public. So we have a trigger in the third and ninth houses on September 7, 2025. Typically give a week before and a week after a lunar eclipse, but definitely concentrate on the exact peak date of the 7th. And this is always in my mind an astrological cycle of danger. When we're in a lunar eclipse cycle, we don't want to be taking any risks under a lunar eclipse time frame, whether it's past it a couple of days or before or on it. We do not want to risk anything, especially Pisces lunar eclipse, because the negative qualities of Pisces is loss, grief, suffering, sacrifice. The sun, of course, in Virgo opposing it is injustices and things that people would claim that are not fair, or criticism. The negative of Pisces, Virgo deals with mental health, emotional health issues, or issues that have to do with injustices that are potentially not always clear. But when we're moving into a lunar eclipse, we don't want to take any risks during that period. Or a lot of people, and you can look at statistics in hospitals and in police reports, that people do the most deranged things under full moons and especially lunar eclipses. So we have a trigger here, and also you can see that the sun is conjoining Neptune in the ninth house of projecting one's bias, opinions, judgments, or making particular judgments out into the open upon other people. It could be, anything that occurred all around the last week of September, let's say September 1 to September 13, first half of September, even like the tail end of August. And so it's dealing with events that are taking place in our private life, some of us definitely in the world, and you could add up how many events have happened around this date that are extremely disturbing. They're psychotic, they're deranged, there's something like an aberration of thinking when you're dealing with a negative of Pisces down here and the eclipse opposing Neptune and Sun on top of the Neptune. So it's also triggering Neptune, which is the planet that rules Pisces. Neptune is a very idealistic, divine love planet, but in its perversion, it can create distortions of reality. And the Neptune in the United States natal chart is always in a right angle called a square to Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini is supposed to be rational and logical and make decisions based on facts. But if it's a square, the people are either being lied to, or the people themselves that are coming up with judgments and conclusions don't have the full story, or they're speculating, or there's so many multi-layers of Neptunian delusion, illusion, unreality that they can't even get to the bottom of it. So what we have a theme here is a moon in Pisces that's ruled by Neptune in the third house of logical facts and communication and journalism and media, but also things that have to do with how did these particular things happen. And we're also going into like other countries, what happened in Britain, what happened in with the Ukraine girl, what happened all over. So we're dealing with a massive overflow of information, of sad events, and it's opposing the Neptune, which adds to the confusion, and it's very permeable, it's very impressionable. Neptune is like an absorbent, it's like the ocean, there isn't any definition to it. So and Neptune, remember, rules Pisces. So we have moon in Pisces, opposing Neptune in Virgo, which is ruling Pisces. Neptune rules Pisces, and the sun, of course, up in the ninth house of projecting judgment and opinion and other people's belief systems, by the way, their opinions in order to justify, which is Virgo, making certain decisions. And it has to do with also layers of potential mysterious motives. And in the ninth and third houses, the ninth and third houses are communication, knowledge, wisdom houses, and they deal with Gemini, Sagittarius. Third house is Gemini influence, ninth house is Sagittarius influence. They're both squaring Mars in Gemini in the seventh house. So what does the seventh house mean? So when it's T-squares like that, one planet on the top, one planet on the bottom, and they make a right angle, both of them to Mars over on the right, that's called a T-square. It's like a sideways capital letter T. That means that Mars is the funnel. Mars is the chalice or the handling of the energy, the flow of the tension between the two opposites. Mars in Gemini is incessant communication, analyzing, mental gyration, speculation in the seventh house of trying to counsel, advise, investigate, and collaborate with a variety of individuals, news sources, origins, motives, people, characters, relationships, and on and on and on, and focusing also upon the people that knew these people, but what was behind these people. I'm not quite sure exactly how it would fit in with the rally in the UK, but it just intensifies with Mars, the assertiveness, aggression, and the volatileness of the entire astrological event. So now let's go to the U.S. conception of the natal chart of the United States of 1789. So the 1789 is equally disturbing. It's bringing up things that have to do with it's bringing up issues that have to do with the moon, again, the lunar eclipse in Pisces, just like before, on September 7, making a conjunction to the Saturn. Saturn is the weak spot of our charts. It's supposed to end up becoming our greatest strength because we work so darn hard on mastering our Saturn, because Saturn is our karmic planet of the whole astrology chart. So there's a weakness, or there's a neglect, or a cluelessness on how to handle our Saturn effectively. So the country is no different. And it's in the seventh house of the people that are outside our normal, everyday, national, you want to call it public government, public society, everyday people, everyday functioning government. The seventh house represents, which is where the Saturn is, people that are not part of that group, but they're like, we're in relationship with them in some way, and they could be covert government or outside the country in a different nation, or they could be just random people that don't associate with being American citizen, or they're somehow anti this country's particular beliefs and goals. So Saturn is like, we're in partnership in some capacity with some sort of mysterious, difficult, challenging, psychologically high maintenance group, agency, or individuals. Why is it high maintenance? Because it's in Pisces. So anything in Pisces is going to activate a more, again, like the Neptune ruled ocean of mystery and ever shape-shifting agendas and motives and rationale and psychological moods and temperaments and delusions or aberrations and distortions of things based upon subconscious motives, past life motives, whatever. So whether this is any of the lists that I just mentioned, the lunar eclipse is sitting right on it. It's 15 degrees Pisces conjoining the Saturn at 20 degrees Pisces. And now it's activating the 7th house, is trying to target who or what or where did all these aberrations and motives come from. So I'm just going to leave it at that this is all it's saying, is that there's some sort of mystery of this bizarre Piscean, ambiguous, hard to pin down person, agencies, motives that are erupting all over the place. But all this chart tells us is that it is coming from a source. It's not just a random act. There's some sort of synchronicity. Even if the synchronicity, you could trace it back to the astral plane on a phenomenon that has somehow got its tentacles in overriding and taking possession of certain individuals and agencies to do random acts. It could all be coming from a single source. Now, the Uranus up here in the 9th, 10th house, I find very interesting in turquoise up here on the outer rim, because that planet is an awakener, and it deals with truth and transparency and quick, sharp revelations. And that is about to hit the top line here. So these lines that are up and down and left and right, they're the axis point. It's the cross. It's called a blue cross. And it governs over the houses of Capricorn, Cancer, and Aries, Libra. So it's a power line. But the top of the chart has to do with public exposure or public notoriety or public transformation and things that go out into the world that are like government control or systems or established protocol and compliance, or things that have to do with presidents of the United States or CEOs or people in control, people who have authority. But it also has to do with like the consensus of the people waking up and taking power back, or becoming more clear and investigating or discovering what is really going on with all of the increase of violence and disruption and insanity. So Uranus is about to go from 1 degree Gemini here, as you can see, and move on to the degree of 3. And that's not going to happen though until spring, summer next year of 2026. If you're in the northern hemisphere, or the western hemisphere. And so the Uranus conjoining the midheaven is a big deal. So May, June, July, August 2026, this is the mark of a moment in time when the people have absolutely reached their maximum. We've had enough of all of this nonsense. And this has been building since summer of 2025, or I have a lot of Australian and New Zealand and Asian clients, and people, subscribers. So it would be June 28, 2025 through November, first week of November 2025, Uranus moved into Gemini, which is almost touching on this power line of the US. And so it's almost activating it. So it's already in motion, a restlessness and anxiety and intense desire for change. And it's in Gemini, which is information and the way people think. Now we have, and by the way, that cycle is going to last from June, July, August 2026 all the way through May 2027. Very, very intense transformations and change. I also want to add the comment that I see America as a people, not a nation necessarily. When you really look at the astrological meaning of what the chart symbolizes, it's the people all over the world that believe in the original values of America. That's how I'm looking at this chart. So I'm including all of you in there, not just isolating Americans. So the other thing that again goes with the original theme of the previous chart was the Pisces Neptune theme again. So we've got, remember, the lunar eclipse in Pisces on the Saturn in Pisces in this natal United States chart, exposing and pointing the finger that there was a source individual that is trying to stay anonymous or confusing. I happen to believe pretty much percent, like 90%, 95% of the shooting that happened last week, that they caught the person, but there's so many bizarre things about it that don't match up. Same thing with the poor Ukrainian girl that got killed on the train. What the heck is that about? Why? And then anything else that you want to lump into this in the past 2 weeks that has been disturbing, and like, what is really the facts? What's really going on? That is all Pisces and Neptune. If you ever want to find a mystery in a chart or look for a mysterious energy, it's going to come through Pisces or Neptune. So guess what? Look what we have here in this same time frame. We have the planet Mars right here, which is an aggressor trigger, moving on top of the United States natal Neptune. Okay, so there's another validation, another reinforcement. And guess what? It's in a square to Jupiter up here on the upper left in blue. That exaggerates, magnifies the event 100-fold. It makes it more emotional, more traumatic for everybody to notice. Like, you can't ignore these things that are going on. And Jupiter in Cancer is supposed to be the planet in the sign of a whole year of protection and security issues and food and water and economy and money. And it's in a square to the United States natal Neptune, which started right around the September 7 date. Okay, there we go. All right, let's do a search to pinpoint the moment Mars conjoins the United States Neptune, and also when Jupiter makes an exact square to the United States Neptune and the Mars. So we have Mars conjoin Neptune exact on September 9. All right, so that would be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, peaking on the 9th through the 10th. It was in play. That would have been what I would predict. I would have told anybody, be extremely cautious of some sort of subterfuge going on between the 9th all day and the 10th, because I always give a day before, after the actual peak, and there it is right there. And that, when would that happen? Once in 18 months or something like that. Then let's find the peak to the Jupiter square Neptune, which is exaggerating and magnifying the drama and the intensity of it. And that's happening down here on September 22nd. So this is the first peak of Jupiter square Neptune. That is completely normal. Jupiter transits are very sloppy. They could be in play for 2 to 3 weeks, even before and after the peak moment. So we've got it basically happening the same couple week orb of influence. That makes sense to me. And then we've got it happening literally on this date here between now and the 22nd of September. We've got another one on December 20 to January 10, peaking on the 31st. So we're going to watch for that moment. And the last one is on May 10 through May 20, peaking May 16, 2026. And then it moves on. It's done. So that's very typical. So what does it mean if we didn't know any of these exaggerated events were going on prior to this? I would have said, well, don't ever trust in a Jupiter square, People aren't using the best judgment. And when it's squaring Neptune, people are all over the place with trying to figure out the right course of action. There can be a lot of confusion. There could be a lot of misunderstandings or misinterpretation. There may be wrong motives involved. There could be distractions and decoys and layers upon layers of hidden people, individuals, and tangled sort of involvement. So it's not just what you see. It's not what your eyes have seen right out front in the 3D world. There's another multi-layered thing going on here behind the scenes. It's very, very ambiguous and confusing. So we just keep having the same theme. So what is the answer? The answer would be when the Uranus starts moving closer to the midheaven, which might not be until July, August 2026, when that core powerful Uranus triggers objective truth, transparency, and revelations. But it's good that it's almost on the midheaven this past June, July, August 2025, September, October, November. It's good that it's in Gemini right now, but it's not exact yet. If we look also at any other astrology cycles that I could maybe point out could be some kind of breakthrough of some sort, I did see one with Mars. I think it was to Uranus. And then we'll look at the other United States chart to see if there's anything else. Oh, yes. And then there's a new Mercury retrograde coming up also. So we'll take a look at that. All right. So, yeah, it was this right here, the 23rd of September. So again, 22nd, 23rd, 24th of September, Mars squares Uranus. The same time Jupiter squares Neptune, which is confusion and disbelief and lots of different fuzzy and not very solid explanations for anything. And it could be an escalation of even more confusing events. And we're going to get to the solar eclipse in a second, which validates that. Mars square Uranus could force something out into the open that is finally potentially making sense of why all these things are escalating out of control and bringing such trauma to the planet. So we're going to watch very carefully that date. Now what I want to do is also just go into the solar system planets' relationships with each other. Let's see if we can find a match. So on the 20th, we have a Venus square Uranus. 22nd, we have Mars going into Scorpio. And here's another Mars transit, Mars in conjunct Neptune. Look at that. On the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. So there is this askew, disconnect, discombobulated information that is incongruent with each other. It's isolated incidences that your intuition and gut feeling is saying there's a connection, but you can't put it together. So there's another possible scenario possibly coming up between the 20th and the 22nd, 23rd that I would be looking out for. And then I would also include this other one, Mars in conjunct Uranus on the 24th. So that's not going to be a very easy week for the world in regarding unexpected surprises and things coming out of left field that people are having to like wrap their minds around. It could be just information, but let's just see. So then, all right, we were going to go into the Mercury retrograde, weren't we? So the next Mercury retrograde is happening right. You guys could probably see it faster than me. There it is. No, that's Jupiter. I know, I probably saw it, right? There it is. Okay, this next Mercury retrograde is at 6 degrees Sagittarius, that's right, and it is conjoining Mars. So we have a Mars theme. We've got a Mars, Neptune, Pisces, Solar Eclipse, Virgo, Lunar Eclipse, Pisces. We've got a Mars, Neptune theme, and Mercury is coming as the messenger, conjoining Mars in Sagittarius. I remember what I thought this was. I think that this has to do with judgment because it's in Sagittarius, which is a judge, and in Mercury has to do with a decision. So a judge is going to make a decision. It could happen the last week of October and peak somewhere around the day Mercury goes retrograde, which is November 9. It could continue all the way to November 12. And that could also, because it's Mars, instill more unexpected violence and reactions. And then that's it. It leaves retrograde on November 29. So, okay, what does that mean for all of us personally? Each one of us could be experiencing during that first 2 weeks of November a step up of intuitive guidance that's just downloading in our outer mind something we absolutely need to take care of, something we need to address, something that we need to handle and take action on that makes us feel good about our lives. That's all I would say about that. All right, so now let's go into the conceptual chart. Mercury retrograde on November 1 through the 15th. And the Mercury retrograde is going to be at the 12th house in conjunct Jupiter. That makes sense. So again, that judgment that could be decided upon is in conjunct Jupiter, which is ruling Sagittarius. So again, we have a judgment from a person who's supposed to be at an ethical, moral position of power. Jupiter has to do with wisdom, judgment, and moral code, standards, ethics, integrity, and it's in conjunct the Mercury in the 12th house of Pisces, which is it's a glitch. It's like a very unfortunate scenario where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. And so it feels to me that I'm just seeing right now a vision of authority people standing around and creating a pattern of all specific, a handful of tragic events, and looking at each other and going, look at this pattern. We've got to do something about this. This is highly tragic, and they must have some connection. And how are we going to ensure safety? Because that's the Jupiter here in Cancer for the population. Okay, so this is the one that is coming up on September 21. And the solar eclipse is like a new start. So thank you for your patience going through all of these planetary descriptions. And to finish up this video, let's locate the solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo in the United States 1789 natal chart. And we find it over here on the left lower side of the first house of identity, the country's identity, or people that represent the face of the country. It could be the people, it could be the face of those who are in prominent scrutiny, auditing, editing, and scrutinizing, analyzing the country and the entire situations that have been going on. And you can see here how it is in an opposition to the Neptune and Saturn on the other side in the 7th house. So one of the things that this creates from personal experience, having a Saturn opposed Sun, is a person feels that they are in incredible down to the wire pressure to finally hone in on one's next step they must take. and it has a lot to do with the divine plan of the person. This could say the divine plan of the country. No matter what zodiac sign the sun is in, if Saturn is in an opposition to that sun, we're having an incredible pressure to perform and step up to the plate, to begin accepting the responsibility and the next step on how to approach reaching one's goal. So this is a collective goal because it's in the country's chart, but we could also see that this is an individual goal for every one of us. It would be a little bit softer and more impersonal and out there, outside of our personal realm, rather than if you had this astrology cycle opposing your exact natal birth sun. That's another story. It's like 100% in your face and intense. It's not bad. It's just, it keeps like signaling to you, you can't procrastinate any longer, doing what you were fulfilled to do, what you need to fulfill, what you were meant to do. And you could take the big picture of your blueprint of life and then chop it up or dissect it into small pieces from the time you're small all the way to the end of your life. And each one of these moments that we have some sort of a watershed moment in our astrology, it could be likened to taking another step on that rung of the ladder, or that notch that we have to climb. So there are certain astrology cycles that are more obvious than others. This is one of them. So imagine if we're all receiving a solar eclipse at 29 degrees Virgo, and and it is wherever it is in your birth chart, which I'm hoping to go through and describe with every zodiac sign in our next video for you. Imagine if we're all under this influence, we're all going to feel it. We're all going to feel like we're at that moment next week on September 21. Like, I've got to get my ducks in a row and move forward to the next step. What does this transit mean to us? It means that we are agreeing and allowing and accepting that next step. We finally surrender to it and realize there's no way out. I've got to take that next step of what I have to figure out and move forward on. And it's inevitable. So I have to find a way. It doesn't mean that you have to get it done by then. It means that you are accepting that you're in agreement, like this is the next initiation or test, if you want to call it, or vision. You can feel it. And then you begin figuring out the process of how to get it. But it comes more from within yourself. It's getting the goal, the achievement goal, the agenda straight. It's finally agreeing, this is the outcome that I know deep within my gut I now need to achieve. So that is the only thing that's required, okay, under this Saturn opposed sun. Now, you put this on the United States chart. I think it's quite amazing that the solar eclipse sun is sitting in the first house, which is personal self accountability and the self-image of all of us in the country and all American, heartfelt American-like people all over the world. All those who resonate with the ideal of what America originally was supposed to stand for, we're now integrating next week that part of that vision for our life, for our standards, for our physical, material, everyday walk, and what we need to do to achieve that. And it's just the acceptance, like, yes, I do resonate with this ultimate outcome that we all want, that I want, and I accept it, and let's do it. That's what it means. So when it is opposing the Saturn, that is, to me, the core of the meaning of Saturn opposed the solar eclipse sun. Now, I welcome all different kinds of definitions. I did make a list of them. They're very laborious, detailed, but I don't want to go into them all, but they can also resonate with the observation of somebody outside of us, our country, or ourselves that might appear limited, incompetent, delusional, secretive. We're talking the country now. So let's pretend we're all resonating with the principles of America. And that, by the way, goes back to the original golden ages on Atlantis and previous lifetimes. And also, there is a teaching that all of this originated from the god star Sirius. So imagine the divine blueprint where if there was a society that was on the honor flame and was run by very high, beautiful honor of love and order and systems, okay? And where the goal was to attempt to transmit that over and over again in the history of the earth to a specific government or society and country, for a civilization, for a time. And America could have been seen as potentially the last one so far that was attempting to bring that into the physical. So imagine Saturn is in an opposition to the solar eclipse representing that theme. Saturn opposed Sun would go, holy cow, this is really inadequate. It is so corrupt, or it is so multi-layered because Saturn's in Pisces, so fuzzy, so ambiguous, so unclear who's doing what to who and what blah, 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 and who's behind everything. It's a conglomerate mess. So the requirement would be at a 29-degree Virgo to attempt to ignore the third dimensional world illusion of that Piscean sea of subterfuge and multi-layered confusion and psychology, and instead hold on to the feeling and the vision of analytical editing, purity, higher standard, and perfectionism, not in a human sense, but in a heaven sense, okay? No human can be perfect. So it's the motive in the heart and the capacity to have the Virgo skills and competence and expertise through the heart to be able to pull off this next step and ignore the third dimensional illusion world, the mirror world of the third dimension, which is represented by the Neptune and Saturn, that keeps bombarding our senses to tell us what's really happening. And instead, we need to go up. Now, that could be talked about for like a half hour, because look at all the different scenarios and everything that keeps bombarding our senses. It would be like as if you took your own life right now, which is a good analogy because we're all under the solar eclipse, right? And we look at our life and we say, okay, in spite of the fact that this is the illusionary world that I am dealing with, that has an external agenda, an external program. Now, we're only talking about the negative stuff. And my own programming from all my childhood, maybe my past lives, however you want to go. And I am being required right now to put it on a shelf and go up higher to my higher self and feel and know in my gut, in my heart and intuition, what I'm really meant to live like, how it's really meant to look in my life. I know it. I feel it. It's not completely here yet, but I know I must accept and try to achieve it. Just try. So what we're doing when I say ignore the Saturnian, Piscean, Neptunian subterfuge and illusion mirror world, I don't mean neglect dealing with it. I mean, do not allow it to weaken you and disempower you. So now we're going to transfer that onto the whole country. Do not let the lies and deception and the dysfunction of that Saturn-Neptune realm over in the 7th house of other important, significant, public, or powerful figures in an opposition to the brilliance of the power of the new beginning of the sun and solar eclipse, color and fade and undermine and weaken and drain that beautiful Virgo clarity. Okay, so that's how this is manifesting in this solar return chart on the US natal. Now let's go to the conceptual 1776 chart, which I have not looked at yet. Okay, so this chart is depicting our original inspired fire and flame within us to launch an independence away from slavery. And this is the solar eclipse up here at the top of the chart conjoining the 1776 Neptune and in Virgo, okay? It is an ideal, going back to the ideal, the positive of Neptune is the ideal divine love and passion of the original blueprint in the ninth house of a social structure. It's not just the house of religion. We can look at it as the house of ideal concepts that rule society, a vision, a blueprint, a game plan, and a belief in something higher. Belief in God, belief in the light, belief in what we were originally talking about, which is that this could be a country, and every one of you who have that flame, it's like you're carrying a country in your own world, your auric field of an ideal dream from where you came from in the etheric plane, from another universe. And that is what you're carrying inside of you. And that solar eclipse is triggering it and activating it. It is in a square, which is a confrontation conflict to the Mars over on the right side, which is intellectual mentalism and argument. And that has to do with Gemini, Mars and Gemini. This is just the negative of Mars and Gemini now. So don't get all upset if you have a Mars and Gemini. That's a really beautiful, powerful mind and memory and intellectual capacity to debate and to be curious and gain knowledge and facts and information, to express yourself, to talk, to share, write, create, whatever, even if it has to do with art, artistic design, music, media, journalism, writer, if you're a writer. But when it's in a square to Neptune, there will be occasions where there's another side to this Mars that can get corrupted. And it says that it has to do with misinformation because Neptune is in a square to it and being misled. Okay, so it's dealing with things that have to do with the illusion of something sounding logical, but it's a lie, or the illusion and the kind of the sort of feeling like this kind of makes sense to me. I can see where this person's coming from or why they said this and that, but something inside of me tells me there's something missing, or I'm being faked, or I'm being led down the wrong path of logic. It's not, or it would be like even like AI faking videos and film footage and people and images and photos, right? Or content or quotes or even voices of people saying things and they never said it. This would all be Neptune square Mars. So the solar eclipse is sitting on the Neptune, which is bringing the person back into the ideal divine love of the original blueprint of the ninth house of how society and higher law and anything you want to attribute that beautiful ninth house of Sagittarius, which is a visionary knowledge, teaching, explaining, publishing, writing, promoting an ideal concept, believing in some beautiful ideal realization of a goal. It's bringing all of that down into the ninth house, and it's challenging intellectualism based on just third dimensional world without the heart flame and without honesty and integrity of the ninth house, because it's in a square. So, all right, so we've said enough of that, and I think I will wrap this up, and we will go into the next video, which is the solar eclipse on and how it's relating to all of your sun signs.